All right, Mr. Michael. It is Thanksgiving. We're doing a episode. Oh my god, I always fumble my words in the beginning.
I don't know why you need a script.
This is not a script. This is off the top of the
No,
dome.
you just need a script for your intro.
Oh, I need one because
Yeah.
I fumble my words. Okay.
Yeah, like index cards. I'll hold them right here.
All right, guys. I can't read. It is November. Is that right?
Yeah.
It's Thanksgiving. It's Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And my guest is Mick J.
Who's that? Who's that guy?
Oh man, Mike.
Who's that guy?
Welcome back on the podcast.
Was I here before?
Yes.
Where? When?
We tried to do an episode.
Yeah. And what happened?
I don't know. You want to say?
There was some harsh critics, as in my own fucking brother, who said that I sounded nervous. It was very impromptu.
It is my fault. It is my fault. I was like, Mike, you want to do a pod? 30 minutes later, he's down here, ready and all of that. So that's definitely on me. Yeah. I thought I wanted to do like more of a, like the real you, like, you know, without the, 30 minutes before.
Yeah.
Like
this one was more like 15.
It was more. You had a day notice. Oh man, Michael brother. So I want to Michael brother Michael.
Okay, that sounds a little brother.
I want to talk a little bit about the basement. We finished the project. We're now in the studio.
Yeah, man.
Just the floor is yours. What are your thoughts about this whole space? What do you think?
I think it turned out exactly what we thought it would be, with some obstacles in the way, but we got through it. And yeah, man, I'm thankful that it's done.
Oh, I know.
Thank God. And it was a long-winded summer.
We didn't have a summer.
Yeah, man, we started in, what was it, like mid to end of May?
Yeah.
And we kind of finished the end of October, beginning of November.
Bunch of blocks, finding guys to do the job, certain times getting them so they're not blocking each other. Yeah. Everything is like a process. Everything is like, you have to have this done before this done. And it was all learning in the beginning. We had no idea.
Exactly. We had some idea, but like it came with its challenges, and we overcame them, I think, to the best of our ability with our experience and knowledge. I think total
6 months,
give or take.
What was the best thing you've learned on the project?
Patience.
Ooh, with me, right?
That's a different story. Patience in regards to doing the actual physical labor, not to take shortcuts, because that always ends up biting you in the ass, setting you back. Yeah. We had a couple of those instances where things weren't fully thought through, and that's on both of us.
Oh yeah.
But we made it work, and we got through it.
Like the painting, right? The painting we had to do twice, start to finish twice. Like we first primed it, 2 coats, which is a lot of work, ceiling and walls. Yeah. Then you do 2 coats with sanding. I don't think we sanded, honestly, on the first time. First time around, I don't know if we sanded, but we got shiny paint.
Yeah, we ended up getting a shiny finish. And then when it was all said and done, we saw the imperfections in the wall. And that was mainly because of the way we applied the shiny paint, which we didn't know had to be applied a certain way, so you don't see all the imperfections on the wall. So that was a little frustrating because it took about 3 weeks for us to paint the entire space.
Well, we're doing it after work.
Yeah.
We're working Monday through Friday, both of us. You also have other obligations. I have other obligations. Like, so it's just like, we're also doing the project down here. Exactly. It's like, you can't paint at 12 at night. Or, you can't do certain things at night because of the noise.
Yeah.
Or you're tired. You have other obligations. You have work tomorrow. People, you got to be sharp. You can't, it can't be, 3 hours of sleep going to work, so.
Definitely.
Like you were saying, like we had to do all this, like these long. It took 3 weeks because we don't have all day to do it.
Yeah.
Our weekends were dedicated for this work, for the most part.
Yeah, we try to make the most out of the summer with what we could. We took some mental breaks to just go out and see people, do things, and but the basement was still our priority, and we got it done.
Yeah,
and that's all we could say at this point. That it's done, it's behind us.
Which is wild.
Yeah.
I just remember being down here and it's all insulation.
Right.
That it was insulation for the longest time, I think, if I remember. That it felt like the longest part. The framing and then the electrical and all of that took a while, and the plumbing. The plumbing was quick, but the electrical took a couple weeks.
Yeah.
To just put everything together and do the rough in for it. But
Yeah.
I just remember seeing insulation in the basement most of the project.
Well, because we couldn't do any of the insulation until the plumbing and electric was done, because we're covering it all
Right.
with the insulation. But the insulation was something new. Like, we've painted before, a couple of like smaller projects.
I didn't really. This was definitely my first kind of rodeo. We did
yeah.
the closet upstairs.
Yeah.
But you had more experience than I did with the paint because you touched it before.
Yeah. I've painted before. Painted when we added new walls upstairs.
Yeah.
So this was a much bigger scale. And it took a little bit more concentration because of the way we wanted it to come out, because of the amount of money we're putting into it. So we didn't want to half-ass it. So we did our best to do 100%. So yeah, back to painting again. So we saw the imperfections. We had the contractors come and fix a couple of things, because there was, bulging in the walls from the wood. So that's something you can't 100% avoid, because there's metal plates behind the wall that help, protect electric wires. So if you're doing any work later on in the future, you don't,
screw a hole into
you don't screw a hole into a wire and then kill yourself or unalive yourself. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So that was fun. So, and then we had to redo the entire basement with painting. So we got a different paint, which was a flat finish, which can be applied in any manner. So,
and you don't really see the imperfections.
Yeah, you can go up and down, side to side. It doesn't have to be a uniform finish. So that helped, but the techniques really did come in handy.
So that we learned on the second go.
We learned on the second go, but we picked it up pretty quick, and we finished the entire basement again in, I think, about 4 days.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. That's ceiling paint, 2 coats. That's all the wall paint, including all the wall cuts, everything. 4 days. From 3 weeks to 4 days.
3 weeks with work and weekends to 4 days with work and.
We didn't need the weekend.
I don't think we did a weekend. We did it during the week. So
that's screaming progress.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
So, and it came out pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it looks good. It looks professional. Honestly, the paint looks professional.
Yeah.
It looks better than when we bought the house upstairs, to some extent.
Yeah, 100%.
Which is crazy, because we really took our time with this. But we had a technique. We're a little bit fast. And it looks good, man. I'm just surprised. When I look around here, I'm like, wow, this ain't easy. This is a little complicated space. You have the soffit here. You got the molding. You got doors. All this stuff. But we painted before the molding and all that. But
yeah.
Anyways.
We had to take off the light switches to do the second coat again, because it was all.
We
took out all the light switch covers, everything that was kind of an obstacle, so we can just paint pretty quick and not have to really worry about things in the way.
Yeah, we have 37 cover plates or whatever we have to take off. Like a lot.
So
that's annoying. That really is annoying. It's flathead screws. But other than that, it looks good. Yeah, it came out, man. It turned out good, man. That's all I gotta say. It was very stressful, but Man, we pulled together. We learned a lot of new skills, and now we could take that to the future.
Yeah.
Any project, we're doing a bathroom, or we're doing a living room, or repainting a bedroom. That's gonna be nothing.
Yeah.
Compared to doing all of this.
Yeah. Speaking of bathroom, we installed our first shower outside of the base, which has to be done with the plumbing. But we put together the shower wall, the doors, the brackets, all that stuff. Yeah, siliconed it, sealed it.
Which is easier said than done, but
Yeah.
we followed the guidelines on the instruction booklet, and the manufacturer also had videos, which was very helpful. But first time doing it, no fucking experience, right? But you pay attention, you follow the instructions, you do exactly what they say, it will come out fine, and it did.
Yeah,
not a problem. I mean, maybe we'll see in 5 years.
Yeah. As of right now, in the short term, I think we're good.
I think we didn't really cut corners.
You can't.
At all. Like,
not with that. Not with the shower.
We applied to spec.
Yeah.
And what else did we do? We also we did all the shelves in the basement.
Yeah.
All the shelves, closets. We put some of the hardware together, the doorknobs, some of them. I mean, what else? Other than that, I mean, that's pretty much it. The installation we did, we made a video on that. That was fun.
Yeah.
We had a nice process. Mike would cut, and I would put in, and then we'd swap. And that took a while.
Yeah.
Because
first day was horrible.
Yeah, because
we got like half the bathroom done, which is 36 square feet in total. Because
you're just going back and forth. You're thinking, yeah. It was.
But after that, it was smooth sailing pretty much for the rest of it.
We didn't have a process then.
No.
We're both cutting. We're both measuring. We're both doing everything. There's no rules. So it's better when you could split the work up.
Well, efficient. Yeah, because the real finishing work of the basement didn't start until the insulation was in, because once the installation's done, you can put in the drywall, do all that, and then spackle and paint.
Yeah.
So run all the electric.
Whew. That was one hell. I mean, yeah, that was one hell of a job. They did a great job.
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, probably the nicest work I've seen. So, anyways, we had a topic in mind, and we wanted to talk about how you came up, grew up, and are living with and managing diabetes.
Type 1 diabetes.
Type 1. And there is a big difference, and we could maybe even start there. The difference between type 1 and type 2, just briefly. And if you want to take the floor with that, or I could.
Yeah, no. So I grew up with type 1 diabetes, juvenile diabetes, also known as. I got it when I was 7 years old. And basically, my pancreas had stopped producing insulin. And coming later, as I got older and, between doctor appointments and research and all this kind of stuff, it's just found out that it was most likely a hereditary result of getting it. When I first got diagnosed, I remember that they said that a virus attacked my pancreas and that's what killed it. And that's why it stopped producing insulin and all that stuff. But, over the years, I learned that it was most likely hereditary, like learning more about like the family history, like on our dad's side, some people on our mom's side that had it. So it was most likely a hereditary result. So that's what it is. And then type 1, you have to, take insulin shots. So your pancreas is not producing any insulin. So when you're eating, you need something to break down the sugars. And that's what the pancreas does, produce insulin to help break down the sugars in your body. Mine wasn't doing that. So I had to take insulin shots to do that, to help break it down. So, it can be, the blood sugar can stay level as a normal human being.
So so basically it's like, diabetes type 1, it causes your pancreas to not produce insulin. And so you have insulin. Insulin, everyone at least today knows like it's pretty available for the most part. But it's the manual process of managing your sugar. So like it's actually really challenging, right? It's like anytime you eat, it spikes up your blood sugar and it kind of stays there until you do something about it.
Right.
So it's like you're always, anytime you eat or have a drink that has sugar, or you do exercise that burns sugar, or any of those combinations, you always have to like do some sort of management.
Right.
And it's a very manual thing. For the most part of your life, it was very manual.
Yeah, up until a couple years ago. So
walk us through, if you don't mind, like when you first got your diagnosis, what immediately changed for you?
I can't recall 100%. It's just, I was 7 years old at the time. So it was definitely something you would never like think about, or I didn't even know existed. To be honest, I remember that my parents were scared. I guess they heard of it. They're much older, so they know, and they had family that dealt with it, but it was never like told to us or anything like that. Because why, you
Right.
know? So it was just like, okay, like I have to live with this. It's not something that's like treatable. It's something that you have to live with. So
It's not
trying to
curable
it's not
at the
curable.
time.
It's manageable, but not curable at the time. Even to this day, now this December 3rd would mark the 23rd year that I have it. So there's definitely been advancements in medication, devices and all this kind of stuff that help manage it and make it a little bit more normalized,
Yeah.
But there still isn't a cure, at least that we know of in the United States. There's always, my mom is always looking at like seeing videos and stuff like people doing surgeries to get like a new pancreas and all this kind of stuff, but it's not 100% like approved. And so, there's always that hope that it is curable. I'm hoping that there is with, AI and all this kind of stuff now that's, coming to the forefront. And, we'll see. But for the moment, it's just keeping it manageable, and just trying to live with it as best as you can.
Yeah. So like, I remember like I guess in early years, like how did it happen? Like did what can you walk through like what made you guys go to a doctor?
Yeah, that one's pretty simple. I was using the bathroom very frequent, like every minute, every 30 seconds sometimes. It was just very frequent. Um, you know, something that wasn't normal. Um, so one day I came home from school. My parents took me to the doctor. Our parents took me to the doctor, and they tested my blood sugar. They told them what was going on. So the doctor took my blood sugar, and it was 427. Like I remember the number like distinctly, and he's like, "You have to take him to the hospital right away." That was his like answer to when he saw the number on the machine. So took me to the hospital. I was admitted for 5 days, um, and just kind of like trying to understand as a 7 year old, um, what this is and what you have to do and how this, changes the course of your life to come. So learning how to draw insulin from a vial using a syringe, how to inject it. I remember they would have me inject the syringe into like an orange. That was one of the um, exercises they had me do. Managing the diet, like what you can eat, what you can't eat, and then just how to like build the routine, like what you have to do in the morning, midday, dinner time. You have to test your sugar, take the insulin based off of like what you're eating, based off of what the number was.
Right, right.
There wasn't really, not that I remember, which doesn't make sense now that because I'm doing it now, like carb counting, but I didn't remember having to do that. I was told like how many carbs I should have, I think it was like 45 to 60 carbs per meal, and then like 15 to 30 for like snacks in between the day. But nothing really to adjust like my insulin intake based off of like how much I was eating, just based off of the blood sugar number.
Right. And yeah, and this was from when you were 7.
Yeah.
And it's just like all of that was thrown at you, and it's like, well, I don't know what to do. And, in the very beginning, and then you just, every day you're doing it a couple times, and it just became like a very big part of your life.
Oh, it had to be.
Very early on, yeah. And it had to be, like you're saying. Which is very tough. I don't think a lot of people understand the challenges, like how much it affects your daily life.
Yeah.
Like at least how you were managing it back then more, because you have to test your blood sugar, you have to see where it's at, you have to do some math to figure out how much insulin to put inside or to not put insulin.
Yeah.
And what to eat can have a very drastic effect on your mood, your blood sugar levels, really, ultimately. And that has a huge impact 3 times a day minimum.
Yeah.
And then, you had some background insulin, so that there's 2 types of insulin that you were using, right? There's the fast acting, which is before meals.
When I was younger, it was just one. There was only one type.
Oh, they didn't have.
There was no background insulin that you would take that's long term.
Okay, so let's talk about that. So before a meal, you would have a fast acting insulin. This would hopefully counteract the raise in blood sugar after you eat.
Right.
Then you didn't have the slow acting one that you inject yourself like before bed, and it just slowly gives you insulin over a longer period of time.
Exactly, to keep like your sugar in the range that you want it.
And what's the typical blood sugar range that people should have normally?
I feel like it's changed over the years, but from what I remember, it's like between 80 and 120 is like the normal range, even after like having food or whatever. Like eventually, it will spike depending on, even for people who don't have diabetes, like you eat something and your sugar will go up, but like the insulin's already working as like the first bite of food that you take. The body notices that there's food coming in, has sugars, has starch, has all this kind of stuff, protein, fat, all that stuff like affects your sugar levels in different ways, different times. Like sugary drinks, that's right away, like your sugar increases because it doesn't have to be digested. It goes straight into the bloodstream pretty much. Food takes time to digest, whether it's like a fatty food, like for instance, pizza. There's fat, there's carbs, there's protein, no, not protein, but like, dairy and stuff like that. And all those things work in the way they're digested by the body affects the sugar at different times after eating.
Right. Yeah.
So there's a lot of like factors that go into it. It's not cut and dry, exercise falls into that. And I learned that recently, like exercise can affect your sugars up to 48 hours depending on how you exercise. Is it a heavy exercise? Is it moderate? Is it light? It could be it could affect your system for up to 48 hours.
Holy crap. So like a hot, oh wow. That I didn't even know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, we talked about type 1. Let's briefly talk about type 2.
Mm-hmm.
The differences there. And then I want to circle back to because we talked about how you managed it for most of your life, and then we could kind of jump back to like more recently, like how it's advanced and that there's hope. There's actually, I think that there's light at the end of the tunnel. So type 2. So and now there's talks of type 3, but we'll focus on type 2.
Yeah, I heard about something like that recently on in a seminar, like video that I watched.
Yeah, it's like yeah.
But we'll talk about that. So type 2 is the adult version of diabetes, which, you know, can be diagnosed at age as you're getting older. And it's obviously like based off of how, you know, you treated your body and your diet and all that stuff in the past, like while you were younger. But it's something that is more treatable, and in some cases can be like reversed in a way.
Wow.
But with type 2, your body is still producing insulin, but not enough. So they have either, I know some people take injections for that, or there's like pills. There's different types of pills that you can take to help manage like the sugar. Some people like take one pill for the entire day, and it helps them regulate their sugar. But you know, from what I know, that the type 2, it's not caused by hereditary. It's not a hereditary cause. So it's something that you get at age, you know, as you're getting older. And
so maybe your life choices impact that a lot more.
oh yeah, definitely.
Type 2, so
Yeah. And there's a lot of like research and stuff like that, like depending on the type of food that you eat, and it's even the type of food that we have available here in the US, you know, that are causing all these illnesses and diseases and stuff to our bodies because of the quality of food that we have here. And I feel like there's some truth to that.
Oh yeah.
Because, you know, back in the 50s, 60s, even 70s, like there was no like, you know, cancer at this like rate, or like type 1 diabetes in juveniles and all these other like diseases that are just every year there's something new or something being discovered.
It's more and more, yeah.
It's more and more, so it makes you think like, you know.
It could be due to the fact that we have more testing and therefore the numbers are increasing because
Right.
But it also could be, you look at the back of a nutrition label on most of the food that you consume at a supermarket, and it's way above your daily proportions.
Right.
And it's just like, this is, yeah, here it is. And you do anything natural, it's not even close. If you do the nutrition facts, if you can, for like natural things, it's not even close. All the other stuff that they put in, it's wild.
Yeah. It's scary too, because it's like your everyday foods, like you're feeding your kids cereal in the morning, or you know, like, you know, things that are like you're buying that's, you know, boxed and made, like snacks and chips and cereal, all this kind of stuff. Like, you think that they're a better choice or alternative, but you know, on the back end there's something in there that's the body doesn't need, and the body doesn't know how to like deal with it, so it stays in the body and it causes things to happen and all this kind of stuff. I'm not a scientist, but some things just, you know, make sense.
Yeah, and I mean, you just look at some of the numbers. It's like, this is 80% of your daily, or this is like 100 carbs. Just this one small thing. It's so dense with all these nutrition, you know, parts.
Yeah,
and they affect the body a lot. Like 100 grams of carbs could spike your blood sugar out of control. Like if you eat it all in one sitting.
right.
Like pasta, for example, is extremely carb dense, and it's real. Like it's a huge problem. Like I used to always tell you this, but whenever I eat anything,
I was gonna bring it up.
Yeah, anytime I eat pasta, I knock out after. Like, it is impossible to stay awake. It's so much carbs. My body's like, you cannot be awake right now.
Yeah, yeah, you need to sleep it off. So that's one of the things that I've learned recently, is that, you know, certain foods are maybe not worth having, because if I do want to have it, it's just an immense amount of insulin for me to take, for even like a small plate of pasta. Like a handful is, you know, a little bit over like where my range of carbs should be for a meal. You know, and I can play around with it. I can have a heavier meal if I want, but I also choose not to do that because I'm also dieting at the same time. So, and it's just like, I'll have it now once in a while that I've learned to adapt with, like, the new technology that I have, which we'll bring up shortly.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's a crazy amount. Like, you want to have a sustaining meal so you're not like snacking throughout the day, which used to be one of my like big faults, is just snacking throughout the day because I'm eating smaller meals. So like try to, suppress the hunger. I'll have snacks throughout the day, which leads to weight gain, and just fluctuations in the sugar throughout the day, because now you're eating a lot more in like closer time frames. So you keep giving your body insulin, but it's not like your body's not digesting it right, and the insulin is trying to act, but now you're having more food put in, and it's just like there's so much irregularities. So keeping like a schedule of how you're eating or when you're eating helps regulate like your sugar levels throughout the day.
Which is good. I mean, that's a perfect segue into the new technology. So we'll start off with the first thing that you got, which was the Dexcom, right? So what is this? And what is it? What is it? Okay, and what is it? So explain what it is and what it replaced, and the benefits of this. Like, try to illustrate that if you can.
Yeah. So this is the Dexcom G6 sensor. It is a CGM, which is a glucose monitoring, continuous glucose monitoring device, and it replaced my blood sugar sensor, like my meter. So where I would, put in a test strip, prick my finger, and I can, test my blood sugar that way. So when I first became diagnosed with diabetes, I would do that 3 to 4 times a day, so I can see how much insulin that I need to take for that specific meal, and so on and so forth.
But let's just stop right there. So before each meal, you were pricking yourself just to test your blood sugar level. This is not even insulin at this point.
There's not the insulin, no.
Right. So that 3 to 4 times per day, like minimum, you're saying?
Right.
Wow. And okay, continue.
3 to 4 times a day. So this CGM replaced that meter for me. I still have the meter now because when I put on a new sensor, I have to calibrate it because it's, foreign to the body. I have to test like where my sugar is at now in my body, and then calibrate the machine when it's, done warming up. And just to get that level, it's like an average of where my body's sugar at and what the sensor is reading in the specific location that I have it, because it differs throughout the body, believe it or not. You're like, a finger stick can be different from where like the blood in my arm is, where my sensor would be. Wow. So say like the sugar near my arm is 120 and my finger stick is 100. So once I enter those two numbers in, the machine calibrates at 110. It's an average of the two numbers. And that's how it's, it's not perfect. Wow. It's never perfect. There's always like I think my doctor said like a 20% like error that they find acceptable. Like you can still, function obviously and do your daily routine with that average, and then the machine like slowly calibrates itself to get as close to the number, throughout your entire body, but it's not perfect. So the difference between the meter readings and the CGM is that the meter, I can only see what my blood sugar is at the time that I'm testing it. I'm not testing it every hour or so to see where I'm at. The CGM provides readings every 5 minutes.
Whoa. Okay.
So you go from having 4 readings a day to, I think it's like 280 throughout the day. Wow. If I do the math right? It's every 5 minutes. 60 minutes is 300. Every hour I would get 12 readings, and for 24 hours is 280.
280 readings.
288 readings.
A day. From 4.
From 4. So you're constantly knowing where your sugar is at, if you need to take insulin, if you see like a spike. So you're more conscious. It definitely drives you crazy, because now like once I started using this device, I'm constantly looking like, what to see where my sugar is at, because I get, rightfully so, like paranoid, like, am I dropping low? Am I going too high? Or, whatever the case may be, try to want to stay in range as much as possible. So the CGM definitely provided a relief in some aspects. And then recently I started using something called the Omnipod.
Wait, I love this, but before we get into that, let's just illustrate this. You went from pricking yourself 4 times a day,
right,
to once for the sensor to go in, and it lasts how many days?
10 days.
10 days. So 10 times 288. Fantastic number,
Yeah.
right? You're not, and then 4 times. So from 40 injections, it reduced to 40 injections, roughly.
40 pricks.
40 pricks, which is that's
the fingers take a beating over time because
Can you talk about that? What? How does it take a beating? Like, so people understand.
Because there's different areas on like the fingertips where you can take like the sugar. You can take it on the side, on the very top, and then on the other side. But like sometimes you have to like, at least for me, I have like thicker skin. So sometimes I would have to like prick myself twice in the same finger to draw blood. So that's definitely like one thing that I've been relieved from is doing that, like pricking yourself, because who really wants to do it? But obviously, you don't have a choice. So it takes away from that. Going from 40 pricks every 10 days to, one, I guess you can call it an injection of the sensor, which is like a tiny fiber thread that just floats around in the blood, and that's how it reads the sugar.
It's incredible.
Which is connected to there's an app on the phone, and it just tells me the readings that way. It connects by Bluetooth.
Yeah, I mean that's just that type of technological jump is like the first computer to your phone.
Yeah.
Now I want to, because you're talking about manual. You only know your blood sugar 4 times a day at most. Let's say if you're doing 4 injections, you only know at the time, like you're saying. You don't know what's happening in between. Now you're having it every 5 minutes for 10 days per sensor, for 1 injection. And it's providing all of that information. And you know, less injections. And every time they come out with a new version, it lasts a little bit longer, or the warm-up time is less. So right now it's 2 hours?
Yeah.
Is the warm-up time. So you basically, it doesn't work for 2 hours.
There's no readings. Yeah.
No readings. And then at the beginning and the end, you take, you prick yourself to calibrate it. Is that right?
Yeah. So once it's warmed up, you calibrate, like the machine the app will give you like a number of where the sugar is in that area. And then you do a finger stick and you calibrate the machine that way. And then it works that way. You can calibrate multiple times throughout like the 10-day life of the sensor. If you feel like, like your machine is like the device is not giving you the reading like you think it should be. And that sounds weird to say, but like, say I feel low symptoms, which could vary. It could be like shakiness. It can be dizziness, hunger in some cases. And, you can test to see like where your sugar's at. And sometimes it could be off because, like I said before, nothing's perfect. So if you do feel like your sugar is not where it should be based off of the machine, you recalibrate, and then to get it back to that, homeostasis, I guess is one word.
Okay. Mike, this is really good. Thank you. So you were going to talk about the Omnipod, but I cut you off a little bit.
Sorry. No, you're good.
But if you want to reintroduce that. So what is this device that you're showing?
Now, this is a Omnipod.
Can you show the camera actually a little bit?
This is the Omnipod 5.
So what are we looking at?
So this is a external insulin delivery device, is the best I can put it. It replaces what I was taking before, which was insulin, but not through like a vial or like a syringe anymore. Like they've upgraded to like pens that have the insulin in it. So with these, it works hand in hand with the Dexcom that I have now, and
the CGM.
The CGM.
Yeah.
And it provides, insulin to my body externally without me having to take an injection. for every time that I'm eating. So now I'm cutting out 4 to 5 injections a day, um, to one injection of this per 3 days.
Wow.
So I put, these last for 3 days, and they work hand in hand with the CGM, and they work off each other. So they read each other through Bluetooth, AI, or something to that aspect, and this provides me the flexibility to be on the go a little bit better than I was before. You know, with those insulin pens and like the vials, they would have to be like refrigerated or a certain temperature for them to work to the best of their ability. So having this allows me to put in the carbs that I have to like now count.
Okay, so all right. So you've replaced the pens, which were injections after every meal or even after before meals, and sometimes after, right?
No, it's you want, because it was still the same type of insulin that I was taking when I was younger, just in a pen form. It's still fast acting, so it has to be taken 10 to 15 minutes before you eat so it can start working. So there was no like difference in type of insulin. It was just the way it was being administered as opposing from a vial or a syringe.
So it's like you always had to like plan your eating much more intensely. Like,
Right.
you have to think 10, 15 minutes before what you're eating, the proportion you're eating, measure the insulin, inject yourself, and then wait a little bit and then have your meal. Like, there's always, and that's per meal.
Yeah.
And that was a lot.
Or snack or whatever it is.
Or snack. And that's the recommended ideal kind of way. Now, you're talking about the Omnipod where you're not doing the injections. You're injecting yourself once at the time of installation of the device. It lasts for 3 days. And now you're talking about entering carbs. So let's break down what that is in general. When you measure your insulin, what are the things that you need to know about the food? So you just mentioned the carbs, right?
So carbs. So now that I am working with both the CGM and the Omnipod, I have to break down the amount of carbs that I'm taking, because now there's a little bit more math involved where there's ratios and even like the time of day, because your sugar fluctuates. Like even for a normal person without diabetes, their sugar levels fluctuate throughout the day. There's something called like the dawn phenomenon, which like your sugar slightly elevates before your body's ready to wake up for the day, just to give it that like energy in a way, and just let the body know that, okay, like this person's about to get up and start being active for the day. They're about to eat. They're about to whatever. So there's, like I said, ratios. So now, like on top of my CGM giving me my blood sugar reading, I know the amount of carbs that I have to take. So there's ratios for that. Just to be a little more detailed, there's like in my morning time, I take 1 unit of insulin for every 8 carbs that I'm eating. So if I'm having 40 carbs, then that's 5 units. But what these two devices do together is that it takes my sugar at the time of, that I'm entering this information, and it calculates how much insulin that I'm going to take. So it might not be those 5 units based off of just the carbs. Now it's accounting the blood sugar. And the way these two devices work together is that the Omnipod is always working with the Dexcom 1 hour ahead. So it's figuring out a way what my blood sugar is going to be within an hour from now. And that's how it does its calculation. So if it thinks that my sugar is going to be on the upward, then it will increase my dosage a little bit when I'm putting in the calculation. So it can, once the food is digested and everything, the sugar spike is always going to happen. There's nowhere to stop that, because the food is still entering. The insulin is working a little bit slower than the food being digested. So there's always going to be that spike, but the end result is to keep it in your glucose range. like where you want it to be throughout the day. Like for me, it's between 80 and 180. That's where my frame is. So, it can spike to like 170, but like the hope is, if everything's done correctly, that once the insulin is fully acting, because it acts over like a 3 or 4 hour period in the body, 2.5 hours at its peak, that it brings it down back to my range, which is 120. So that's the way the Omnipod works with the Dexcom. It's working in advance to keep your sugars in range, and that's it's been another relief over the last, now I've been on this for 1 year.
Wow.
So
and I want to get into like also the benefits of just using it, how that's impacted you, but
well, you can dive into that because it has to do with AI in a way.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that part and why I'm so hopeful. But with the Omnipod, how it's like working and communicating with the Dexcom, there's so much information. There's so much data points that need to be factored to administer the correct amount of insulin.
Right.
We didn't even talk about this, but like if you administer too much insulin, that works against you. Instead of putting your blood sugar at the range it should be between, you said 80 and 180.
Right.
Then if you add more insulin than what is required, your blood sugar goes lower than that range, and that's a more you can get symptoms for that.
Right.
Like so it's a balance. Like this is another thing. Like you can't just guess.
Exactly.
Because either you don't put enough insulin and your blood sugar spikes, and it stays spiked for a prolonged period of time,
which causes, over a long period of time for the day, and even like, for days and days, like it causes internal damage to like your organs and all that stuff, like whether it be vision or blood circulation, like a lot of things can happen with uncontrolled diabetes.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Yes. So these new devices are much, much more precise. So before we even talk about the AR part, your insulin pen that you've used most of your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was only calibrated to 1 unit at a time. So there's nothing in between. So if you had 14 carbs, technically you want 1.6 units or 1.8 units if the math is done right.
Yeah, give or take.
If it was the 8 to 10,
it's not a whole number, which these
number.
Units and these pens are, dialed to whole numbers.
So it's like you can never, it was not accurate at all. Now with the Omnipod, it's doing an insulin drip system. And it's working at what's the unit on here?
It's 0.1. Every
0.1?
0.1.
Or even I've seen 0.05.
Yeah, so very,
like
increments of even to like 2 decimal places.
Which is, that is 2 orders of magnitude more accurate, just to put in perspective.
Yeah.
You went from 1 whole unit to 0.05 of a unit. So you can it's trying to be as precise as possible.
Right.
Which is, again, that by itself is a huge advancement in the technology. That by itself, because just having the precise amount of insulin delivered is key.
Exactly.
And now we didn't even talk about this too. Like there's so much benefits we could go into, guys. And this is kind of the purpose of the podcast. We want to explain what it's like. A lot of people, you're not alone.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are, that have type 1 diabetes and might not even know about this stuff. And it's like, it's out there. Does it cost a bit of money? Yes. But like,
health is first. Health is wealth.
Health, yeah, exactly. Don't buy the new iPhone. Buy this instead.
If you need it.
If you need it. Yeah. So we talked about it's administering the insulin very precisely. It's doing the communication with the CGM, the Dexcom. It's looking an hour ahead to even factor that in. Imagine trying to factor that in manually.
You can't.
What we're trying to illustrate here is there's so much variables. It's not that simple. Like, first of all, it's 3 to 4 times a day per meal. You have to think about how much carbs is on your plate, which is never perfectly accurate. Like, how are you going to measure? Are you going to put it in a lab every time you eat? No. It's very difficult, is our point. And then there's even more to it. You have to factor in your current blood sugar. Did you eat something before? And is that still acting? Like, there's 10, 15 other variables, if you want to accurately measure, that you would have to do every meal. But the beautiful thing is we're trying to illustrate is this Omnipod is trying its best to factor all of that in for you. And all Mike is doing right now is entering the best possible guess using nutrition facts portion of the carbs, and it does all of the calculations for him.
Exactly. Yeah.
It went from like this mental exercise of constantly like, oh, well, this pizza slice, I usually put 80 carbs for, but this one's they cut it a little bit too wide. So what is that? You know what I mean? Like it's insane. It's hard without over explaining it like this. It's hard to illustrate how dense it is to manage it. It's not easy in the slightest.
Yeah, it is rocket science sometimes.
It's really difficult.
Yeah,
it's really difficult, and my I want to talk more about this Omnipod now. How the AI part of it, it's using artificial intelligence behind the scenes to do all these calculations, and it's learning on Mike's body. So whenever Mike eats food, and all of the data it's getting from the CGM, it's going into a database, and it's building a profile. This is Mike, and its goal, it's trained. Whatever the circumstances are, whatever those parameters are, try to get Michael in the glucose range at all times, no matter what. When I enter a certain amount of carbs, get me into that glucose range. So it needs to calculate insulin, how much to deliver it over what period of time, and when to stop delivery.
yeah.
Right? And so it's doing that constantly. And every time Mike is interacting with the Omnipod, by entering the carbs, it's learning. It's getting better. It's understanding, you know what? Pizza, we got to do 2 deliveries, 2 different types of deliveries to equalize your blood sugar.
Right.
And it's not going to know that in the beginning, but it's doing this without senses, which is really cool. And this is kind of my AI episode. Like, we're talking about these AI systems are trying to learn without senses. That's exactly what's happening with the Omnipod here. It doesn't have eyes, it doesn't have ears. It has a couple of instruments to measure your blood sugar and deliver insulin. Well, the Dexcom is doing that, but it's communicating and receiving that information.
All right.
The Omnipod is just calibrated to insert a specific amount of insulin at a specific time.
Right.
That's what it does.
Yeah. Because like you said before, even with like how it works in like a drip, if my blood sugar is in range for a certain amount of time, there's indicators on the app that show that the pod is not giving me any insulin because it doesn't need to. So there's periods where, like for instance on mine it's like blocked out red for like 6 hours. That means there was no insulin given to my body because it's not needed. Because of what I did prior, I put in the right amount of carbs, the sugar was accurate. It gave me my insulin, the food digested, and now my sugar's in range for that period of time. And like I spoke about different levels throughout the day, like, midday, like I'll see my sugars elevate a little bit. Nothing crazy, but they start going up. And the Omnipod, like if I check my phone or whatever, it starts to onboard insulin by itself because it's seeing that my sugar is slowly rising, but we want to keep it in range. So it'll start adding like 0.05, 0.1 units, and it brings me back down into that range,
Which is
which is, it's
unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable how much it's doing. Can we just show how small this device is in 2024? That right there has the information to drip a specific amount of insulin into your body with the power of the software and the artificial intelligence calibrating it to artificially create a pancreas for you.
An external pancreas, pretty much.
And with AI, today, it's as worse at it as it's ever will be.
Yeah, because it only gets better day by day.
And it starts learning things and it creates new behavior. There's something called emergence in AI, where new behavior, new features are created out of seemingly thin air.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know how they're created. We know how they're created, but it's impossible to
illustrate
it because you can't. It's trillions of branches that you would have to trace to find how it happened. Right. But it's too much information for us to even consider. So we call it a black box. But this emergence of features could be, I know exactly when you're eating pizza and you will never spike or decline in blood sugar anytime you eat it, no matter how you eat it. You eat it over an hour or you eat it in 10 seconds. Like that could be a feature. Mm-hmm. Another feature could be when you have soda, as you drink it, it's just putting the right amount of insulin, perfect time. It's starting to measure the insulin and how effective it will be for your body. Like, is it going to reduce your blood sugar by 5 units with a dose of 0.05 or not? Like, we're talking like very specific features, and they just emerge. And this is happening as a consequence of you just using the machine.
Right. The more data and accurate, the more and accurate data that you enter into it is only beneficial to it learning.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. The more accurate you give it, it doesn't have to because it's assuming you're giving it accurate data.
Right.
And if you don't, it's got to adjust that over time. And it doesn't have to be 100% accurate all the time. It's impossible. And that's where the other features of the AI is trying to correct that.
Yeah, because when I first set this up, we put in blood sugar ranges and everything for certain times of the day. Mm-hmm. Like where I want my sugar to be between 11 a.m. and 5 p.m., where my sugar wants to be between 5 and 9 a.m., and then 9 p.m. to the next morning, and then so on, like that cycle. Like they're called segments.
You could
you set that
any day you want.
Not for any, it's for the day. So what it's set in for is now for every day for those time ranges.
Okay, you can't
the ratios for carbs. Like when I have breakfast, so my range is from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. So in that time frame, whatever I eat is ratio to 9 carbs per unit. Right? So anytime I enter any carbs between 7 and 11 a.m., it's to 9 carbs per unit, or 1 unit per 9 carbs.
Oh, as opposed to 10 sometimes.
Yeah.
12.
So and then I have between 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. or 5 p.m., anything that I eat is 1 unit for every 8 carbs.
Oh, so it went down 1.
It went down 1 because of the way, seeing when I go to my doctor appointments, they look at the last 2 weeks of information. And then they tell me how to make the adjustments. But back to what you were saying, it's learning or having to reset. The Omnipod knows based off of the information that I put in, okay, I want my blood sugar to be 110 all day, right? And it's seeing those spikes and lows and everything like that. It's learning how to recalibrate itself because it knows it should be at 110 at all times. But okay, sometimes it's 190, sometimes it's 75. What does it have to do, or what is it doing, honestly, is my question, to, reset itself. because my sugar is not always 110.
I definitely don't know 100%, but what I do know is there's like 10 or 15 parameters, main parameters that control blood sugar.
Mm-hmm.
The one is what you described as the carb to insulin ratio. If you play around with that number throughout the day, depending on the type of food typically people eat in those times of the day, that can improve the blood sugar. And then there's your what is the word? It's your resistance. Your resistance would be one of them to insulin. Like how, let's say this insulin is rated for, reducing blood sugar, like 0.1 unit of this insulin should reduce the average person's blood sugar by 10, 20 units.
So for me, it's 40.
But
it's called the correction factor.
Okay, so there's that parameter.
Yeah.
And then there's 8 to 10, maybe 15 more like that. All very specific to the person. That's why you have a doctor looking at your chart, your numbers, kind of figuring it out. But right now, since the AI isn't playing and figuring out all of these numbers all the time, the doctor is assisting the AI by using, her intelligence to play with those numbers.
Right.
But eventually, all those numbers will be calculated. Everything is going to be automated because this is as worse as it's ever going to be.
Yeah, that's the one crazy thing about AI. In the same day, it's the best and worst that it's going to be.
Yeah. Like the future only makes it more better, especially with good training.
In certain aspects, in certain industries, because, there are things about AI that people are concerned about, which,
of course. Yeah.
I feel like that's, it's reasonable to think that because you're training, so you're developing something that's learning on its own, and you don't, like we said before, like it can adapt this certain behavior, but you don't know how many little factors or iterations or pieces of data that went in to get to that root to why it's acting like this today. And that first iteration could have been like 6 months ago, and now you're 6 months later, and now it's doing this, but you don't know what fucking happened between those 6 months from the first iteration that caused this future behavior.
Yeah, you're talking about emergence. Like it was doing A 6 months ago, but we never predicted it doing B, and it's doing B.
And C and D and E. Already.
And it's something that we don't want it to do, let's say.
Yeah, you don't want it to learn unlearned behavior.
Well, yeah.
Yes, in a way.
Yeah. Well, you don't want it to add to that, yes, with the caveat that you don't want it to do behavior that you don't want it to do.
Right.
You want it to try to learn things by itself, but not things that you don't want it to learn.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But like, how do you stop that?
Well, that's the whole ethics of the AI discussion right now, is that we don't know how to stop it.
Mm-hmm.
We'd be lying if anyone told you that. No one knows how to stop it because it's working at a rate that is beyond comprehension. It's working at a rate that is no set of humans could compete with it.
Mm-hmm.
You take the whole population of the world and you use our global intelligence. And right now we would surpass AI in some aspects, but we won't surpass it in some others. Our global population right now, today, you take our collective brain and
Which
we were answer questions against an AI, the AI will beat us in most cases today. So it's already smarter than all humans combined in some aspects today.
It's a lot of brains.
But another thing is it required us. It cannot emerge by itself.
Right.
You can't give it like there are some AIs that are very narrow. Have you ever heard of the game Go?
The game, it's like an actual game?
It's a game. It's almost like chess.
Mm-mm.
But there's this game called Go, I think originated in China, I think. Fact check me on that. But this AI was trained to beat the best Go player in the world. It took time, but eventually this AI beat the world's best player. and then it started to beat him consistently, right? Then they made Alpha 0, which is like the way they name AI, even ChatGPT is doing this, is orders of like magnitude. So 0 is like the first. This new AI was versing the old AI.
And it beat the old AI.
And it beats it 100% of the time. Not 99, like 100%.
Wow.
And then they're doing Alpha 1, which beats 0 100% of the time. So you can try to fathom when you get to that type of complexity, like for one to beat the previous one 100% of the time, the techniques that are developed, the optimizations are developed. Like the one before 0 beat the world's best Go player every single time.
Magnitude.
Yeah. And now you have another AI that's beating that one flat out every single time.
But like, how does that work? Like, in a way, is Alpha 1 like some way already created and watching Alpha 0 play? Yeah. Or are they creating this Alpha 1 from scratch and like the first game, it already knows how to beat Alpha 0?
Oh, no, it's not the first game. It's like maybe millions of games or something. But the amount of games gets shorter and shorter. Okay. Basically, so this is called the narrow AI. It's trained to do one thing, and it's beat you at Go, whoever is the player.
Right.
You can't ask it, what's your favorite meal? You can't ask it, for suggestions on air travel. You can't ask any of that stuff. It's narrow.
Right.
Narrow. It can only do this one thing. But the growth at which it can do it is what we just talked about, where each new one they create can beat the predecessor with an insane accuracy. And how they train it is they give it a simple rule set. This is what you're allowed to do, and that's it. And then it figures out rules that it can fit within that rule set that doesn't involve it prohibiting or doing things outside the rule set. And that's how it learns.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So you give it like a couple rules, and then you just send it out into the wild. You figure it out. And it's gonna lose a bunch of times. And it figures out the things that it tried, did it help it win or did it not? And then it plays with those numbers. They're all weights.
Right. But even to like segue off that,
sure.
A little bit off topic, but I'm watching a show on Netflix now. It's called Travelers. And it came out in like 2018, but it has to do basically with AI. But in this case, that this AI is from the future and it's sending these travelers to the current time, which is the past, in people's bodies that are about to die, whether a car crash, natural causes, whatever. And in the show, it'll be like, okay, recorded death of time is at 10:39 a.m. So then it'll start doing like a little countdown. And then at the 10-second mark or like the 30-second mark, these people are like experiencing like seizures of some sort, or they're going like manic. And then at the time the clock hits 0, that traveler has now entered the body of the person that was about to die. Whoa. And takes them over, right? And what they're trying to do, at least in the first season, is send these future people back to the past to try to correct it, to correct the past, because they know what happened in the future. So in this case, there was an asteroid that was about to hit Earth 18 months from the current time that the show is in. So it sends these group of people. They take over the lives of these people. Nothing else changes. The people they're married to, their work, everything is the same, except that one person who's in the mindset of the person from the future. And these people are being sent by an AI called the director. Whoa. And he chooses who to bring with a specific like skill set and everything like that to try to correct the future. So like the first mission was to stop this asteroid, like shoot a laser basically at this asteroid to deflect it by like 0.07 degrees from it hitting Earth. and causing what has happened at that moment 18 months from now in the future. So they do that, but nothing changes. Like the travelers that came into the present time, they thought like once they do this mission and save the Earth from being hit by this asteroid, is that they'll all just like they'll disappear. Like they'll leave the bodies of these people, and those people that were supposed to be dead, like are actually now dead, and those travelers' mindset is back in the future to like hope for a better future than it was because they corrected it from that one event. So that's like based off of like AI and stuff, which is pretty cool.
That's a crazy world to imagine.
Yeah.
But that could be a world where we live in, where we figure out all this stuff. I don't know about the time travel part, but definitely a director that's making choices like that. You know, it's crazy that you mentioned something like that. The world leaders, I think China and US agreed to not use AI with something about nuclear weapons. Like they agreed to not use AI to do something with nuclear weapons, something like that. I'll try to put a headline or something, but
that's interesting. I didn't hear about that.
This is AI of today. So, by the way, what we see in ChatGPT, very advanced, all that is not what the governments possess. They have something
even better.
Yeah.
That's crazy to think.
Artificial intelligence was created in the 60s.
Yeah.
And that is a long time ago, right? A long time ago. So, yeah, they definitely have something far better. Whether it's orders of magnitude better than something like ChatGPT, I don't know.
So, do you think like what the access we have through ChatGPT now is maybe something the government had access to in like the 70s or 80s, like that we're getting now?
No, maybe 5-10 years ago.
Oh, okay.
They're not going to be that because the computers that we had back then would not be able to do what ChatGPT does today.
Well, how do you know what computers they had back then?
I mean, just Moore's law.
Yeah.
Like how
what's that?
Moore's law is how dense our computer chips are, like how fast they are, and how small they can get over a period of time, something like that. And so basically, it's predicting that every 10 years, the speed doubles or something, or it's every year or every 10 years that the computer speed doubles.
Mm-hmm.
And we're getting to the point where Moore's law is like we've reached the limits of it. So we're not getting much faster chips. Like this graphics card I have in this computer was one of the best at the time. But it's not that it's smaller and has more power per centimeter or whatever you measure that. It's that they just put a lot more power requirements into it because we've reached Moore's law. This is very difficult to talk about because you have to explain a lot of things to understand it. But
okay.
But basically, it's like instead of things getting smaller and faster, like our phones replacing computers,
right?
We're seeing less of that today because we're getting to the fundamental limits.
So now you need to create bigger to produce better.
Yeah, you just increase the size. Like now, this graphics card is huge. It's like 14 inches long. They used to be like this big. They just keep getting bigger,
right?
As opposed to smaller and more efficient. So that's how you could tell, like at a macro level, like how the technology is.
So it's like now reversing. We got to the point where we can make something as fast as it possibly could be with this size.
Yeah.
Now we can't go any smaller and any faster.
We can, but we're very close to the limit.
Right.
Like the smaller, it has to do with transistors. These are like the fundamental building blocks.
Right.
Transistors allow electrons to pass through or not. And this creates all of the logic in our world. The ands, the ors,
the ifs, buts.
all of that. Yeah. All of the logical conditions are created through arrangements of transistors.
Right.
And the goal that they're trying to do is decrease the size of each transistor. I think we're at 4 nanometers right now. They call it 4 nanometer process, which is describing the size of these transistors. If you approach lower, you have problems with some quantum mechanics where electrons can pass through the transistors in unpredictable ways. Right now, very certainly, when we pass electrons through these transistors, they will either flow through or not, and we can control that. But the smaller we go, you run into quantum mechanics where it can literally do unpredictable things. And that's where you reach the limits of these transistors. And that's where quantum computers come into play, where they abuse that unpredictability in a way that makes it predictable.
You brought up like quantum physics and quantum mechanics and all that. The show that I was talking about, Travelers, this AI is a quantum computer.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, it deals within the dark web, like very depths like of the dark web.
Wow.
And that's how like they communicate with the 21st century, which is the current. And that's how they communicate. Like they'll tell like the current people, okay, this certain traveler 2126 is, gonna be here, and there's like I said, there's people with like special skills. There's one guy who knows the time of death and location of every person that dies ahead of time because he's from the future, so he knows where these things are happening and all this kind of stuff. But it's a cool show. But yeah, it deals with like quantum physics and quantum mechanics, quantum computers, and unpredictability, because at this point where I am now, there's like a faction that's like that has hacked this AI director and sending like rogue travelers to like kill the travelers that were sent by the original director. So like that's where I'm at in the show right now, but it's pretty cool.
That's great. There's different levels of high power director, and then the other type of director.
Yeah, they just brought in like the person who created the AI director, like the programmer in the show. Like,
does he have a tie?
She has nothing.
Oh,
I was like, she was a guidance counselor in the high school, and her body got taken over by the traveler from the future that created the AI director, that created like the back door to like a contingency in case like it went rogue, like how to. And this faction of people figured out that back door, and kind of, I think they reverse engineered the AI director to like do what they wanted it to do instead of it doing what it should be doing on its own. Yeah, pretty cool.
So we talked about AI. I want we're gonna circle it back to our original topic a bit, and
yeah. Do you have any questions? Like, obviously you live with me and you've asked questions, but do you have anything that you want me to explain that you've had questions about? Maybe.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot actually. I mean, we really could talk about it for a while, but yeah, I want to, we talked about the difficulties of it and how much improvement there has been.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see hope in the near future with the technology that you have now and how it's been improving since you got it?
Oh, absolutely. I was, not against it, but always like skeptical of, better technology of coming across, but definitely over the years, especially like being part of part of the process of like using this technology, and see how it's like definitely like taking some stress away, and, just giving me a more normalized way of living with diabetes. I could definitely see that the future holds hope with better technology, maybe hopefully a cure one day. So anyone that's like, going through this, it's very understandably difficult, and but there is hope. There are technologies out there, and ways to live a normal life with diabetes. And just always remember, health is wealth. So if you have access to these devices and technologies, please use them. Reach out to your doctors, and you can always even reach out to me. I'll have my brother put my Instagram in the description. You guys can ask me questions. I'm not a doctor, but I do have 23 years of living with it, so I can give you some insight if you have any questions about the devices that I'm using. And if anyone has any tips that maybe even I can, benefit from, please, shoot them my way. And hope for the future with better medical advancements for all diseases and health issues.
I think I agree with you. The future, I think, is extremely bright, and I'm grateful that there has been investment in this sphere, and part of me wish it was a lot sooner, but we're here now, and we might not be here for long, in the fact that it might be so good that you don't have to worry at all. You don't have to input anything. It might be a completely hands-off thing in the very near future, which is amazing. It might be better than human pancreases.
No. There's like I'm circling back to the show, but they have like nanotechnology. They're called like nanomites, but I don't know if it's something that the show just made up, but it like helps regenerate, damage in the body. Like for one guy, he was going to be paralyzed from like an accident, and the lady put in like her nanobites that she was receiving to regenerate her, like her stomach or something would happen, and it regenerated his spinal fluid to like basically help him regain being able to walk again.
Whoa.
So like there's like nanomites, so it's like a blood transfusion, but it's like regenerative.
The equivalent of that today that actually has research is called CRISPR, if anyone wants to look it up. CRISPR. CRISPR.
With no E.
With no E, yeah. So that's what we have today.
So it's like similar to stem cell, almost in a way.
It's like these tiny things literally look at your genome, and can add and remove things from your genome, repair things, modify things, like at the cellular level, which is that has the potential to, you can choose the color of your baby's eyes.
Yeah, I feel like that's taken a little bit too far, but if it can help, like, your organs or anything regenerate your organs,
all of that,
repair, that's, I feel like, as far as that type of technology should go, but not into like picking your like gender, your eye color and all that. Cause
it's wild.
I feel that's a different topic. That's like,
definitely. But it has a potential to do all of that, because what it's doing is the fundamental units of like the modifying that stuff. So it literally has a potential for all of that. Mike, thank you so much for joining the podcast. What up, G?
You say that at the end. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone and their families. Be thankful for what you have. Don't worry about what you don't have, and stay happy, healthy, and safe.
Amen. Thank you, Mike.